We're continuing in the Maimer of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, that he said in 1942, Tafshin Beit. And he's explaining the Mishnah in the Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, that says that man is dear to God because he was created in God's image. An extra dearness was made known to man. Man is extra dear because he was made in God's image. Says the Rebbe, this is talking about the non-Jews and the Jews. The non-Jews, all the Gentiles in the world, there's like 8 billion of them, they're dear to God. They are precious to God because they're made in His image. What does it mean they're made in His image? That they have intellect, unlike the animals, and they have free will, unlike the animals. And these two are really interconnected. The power of intellect means that a person can conceive of different values, different potentials, different choices to make, and then he can weigh out which one to choose, which one not to choose. Says the Rebbe, but that's talking about the whole world. And there are people who are more intellectual and less intellectual, people who are more spiritual, there are people more religious and less religious. By the Jewish people, the intellectual soul, though, has an additional aspect to it. And this additional aspect, in a way, makes it totally different. Namely, that the intellectual soul of a Jew has the perception, the ability to perceive, a sensitivity to the Creator, to God. According to Judaism, God is creating everything all the time. That's our message to the world. Not just that God created everything a long time ago, but God is creating everything constantly, and He's creating it with a purpose. This one wonderful philosophical idea is very unique. And also that God is creating everything from love, and everything He's creating constantly with special intention. This is a wonderful philosophical idea, but every Jew feels this. Every Jew, intellectually at least, perceives this fact. In other words, to a Jew, every Jew, God is not just a religious idea. It's not just something that's waiting for us in the world to come. Rather, God controls every single aspect of our lives, and one big aspect He controls is our power of free choice. In other words, God gives us total free choice to choose what we want. Within limits, a person can't choose to be the moon. A person can't choose to live in 500 years earlier or 500 years later. But nevertheless, within the small number of choices everybody has, choices are very, very important. Very important. To the point where we have Abraham, the first Jew. He chose to follow God's directions, even though it meant that he would be suffering and he would be losing everything that he had, to the point of even losing his children, losing his future, losing his this. But he chose, he made that choice. And that's the essence of the Jewish soul, to do and to feel God's presence and what God wants. Every single Jew, without exception. But, as we know very well, very few Jews actually actualize this. The Mashiach will come and He will bring every Jew to actualize it, to discover the truth, that God is really creating everything constantly, and He's doing it for a purpose. But until then, we have to have a lot of hard work. And part of the hard work is getting rid of the bad impulses, bad selfish impulses and selfish ideas, which are presented to us by the world and accepted very readily and with great gusto by what's called the animal soul, which another name for the animal soul is me. Person's animal soul, or natural soul if you want to call it, feels I exist, the world exists, nothing more normal and real than that. But it also feels that that's the only existence. That's the animal soul. And the godly soul feels that no, God is the only existence. Ein od milvado. And in between them is what's called the Jewish intellectual soul. Which one should I listen to? If I listen to the voice that says that only God exists, it means that, one second, how do I exist? The answer is because God personally is creating me every single instant. I'm a big miracle. The world is a big miracle. So I should do with myself what God wants, creator of the universe. That's the intellectual soul makes these decisions. But the intellectual soul also can go, how do you say, haywire. It says usually the intellectual soul, when it understands something well, it changes the person's entire being. For instance, in Russia, when there came out the ideas of communism, it was just an idea. And it changed the whole entire psyche and personalities and everything of everybody in Russia. All the people in Russia, suddenly, they became inflamed with communism. When Napoleon stood up in France and he said, we're going to free the world, just an idea. Everybody, they accepted these ideas and it changed them totally. Suddenly the fun-loving French people went out and they made war and they killed and they died. The same thing with Germany, the same thing with, etc., all these other nations. We don't have to go into the bad details. The same can be the opposite. If someone comes and convinces everyone of something that's good, that you should give charity, best thing in the world, then suddenly everybody's psyche changes, if people accept it. But you have to accept it. So your mind, we see your mind determines who you are. Or let's say in another way, your mind brings out who you are. But we know too well that a lot of times a person can learn ideas and be affected by the ideas and not change at all. Right? The marriage counselor that goes home and beats his wife. The addiction counselor, psychiatrist that takes that drink and he becomes an addict. Right? People can understand ideas and explain them very well, but it doesn't affect them. Okay, we're now on page 107. And let's begin on page 107. We can turn off the